joining us today to celebrate the life and the legacy of Francine Pascal, or FP, as most of us knew her. My name is Rachel Ruth, and I'm a friend of this incredible family and a proud holder of Francine's spare key. I lived one flight downstairs, and we had our own private staircase door to door. FP was more than my neighbor. She felt like family. She felt like that to so many of us here in this room because she knew how to bring people together. Whether it was a Passover Seder, her annual Christmas party, or a juicy read, you wanted to lean in with her. Talking with the family over the past 2 months since she died, I am only reaffirmed in my admiration for her and all she created. Both myself and the New York Post agree, FP was a total badass. So today, the family asked me to provide a quick backdrop for their personal stories. So here's it. Here's 92 years in 9.2 minutes or less. Francine Paula Rubin was born in Manhattan on May 13th, 1932 to Kate and William. She grew up in Jamaica, Queens, the youngest of 3. Her brother Bert was 5 years older. Her brother Mike, the great Broadway writer Michael Stewart, was 8 years older. And as the baby, she delighted in trying to keep up with them. Their lively dinner conversations were one of her favorite traditions, 6 p.m. every night. To give you a peek into her relationship with her parents, I found this inscription from her in her first novel. Dear Mother and Dad, much of whatever success I ever have is because of the unquestioning love, support, and happiness you have given me all my life. Thank you. I love you both dearly, Fran. In adolescence, Francine started writing for her high school paper, specifically the gossip column. We can only imagine what teenage FP was writing about her classmates in the 40s, but apparently it was racy enough that when her identity was revealed, she was thrown into the pool. Undeterred by her aquatic punishment, she continued writing, and she studied journalism at NYU. And after graduating in 1954, she worked as a freelance writer for magazines including Cosmopolitan and Ladies' Home Journal. In 1958, or thereabouts, she married Jerome Offenberg and gave birth to the greatest joys of her life, Jamie, Susan, and Lori. When she was asked what she admired most about her daughters, she said, Jamie's courage, Lori's charm, and Susan's kindness. After her first marriage came to an end in 1963, she found true love with her crush from NYU, John Pascal, a brilliant writer who encouraged her creativity. Together, they wrote the soap opera The Young Marrieds and were asked to relocate to LA, but FP was a diehard New Yorker. So instead, they moved into the home that we all know at 853 7th Avenue, and her brother Mike lived one flight downstairs. As a couple, they continued to write many books and shows and musicals together, including the Broadway musical George M., which they wrote with Mike. After Broadway, Francine went into young adult fiction with Hanging Out with Cece in 1977. And she said she only completed the novel thanks to the advice John gave her. Write 1,000 words a day, or 4 double-spaced pages, whichever came first. Not 3, not 5, and every single day. She said she followed that advice all of her life. When John died in 1981, she started to spend more time at her brother Mike's villa in Cannes, overlooking the Mediterranean. It became a home away from home for her, and then her home as she lived there part of every year that she shared with her daughters and later her grandchildren, and they'll show more stories about that later. In 1983, the launch of the Sweet Valley series changed the trajectory of her life, and 200 million readers worldwide as they followed the story of Jessica and Elizabeth. And like all good writers, she wrote what she knew. An early book jacket states, Mrs. Pascal acknowledges certain similarities between her real life and her book, and even admits that she has used her children as source material, but claims that they recently have stopped fighting just to aggravate me. Sweet Valley continued to grow nationally and internationally with spin-offs in TV, graphic novels, and more, which we'll hear about later from Whitney. While Sweet Valley expanded, she kept writing. FP wrote the thriller Save Johanna, which is truly scary. If you want to be scared, read that. And If Wishes Were Horses, about her life with John. In her later years, her number one priority was her wonderful family. She had 6 grandchildren: Molly, Mia, John, Nicole, Alice, and Thomas. And she loved them all and gave them every opportunity that she could, which they'll share with you today. With new beginnings, there was also great loss. After her daughter Jamie died in 2008, she said she never recovered from the loss of what Jamie could have been and how talented she was as a mother and a sculptor. And she held Jamie's memory very close to her every single day. She also preserved the memory of her late brother Mike as the fierce guardian of his artistic work. Her guidance led to productions of his work all around the world, including the Tony Award-winning production of Hello Dolly in 2017. Francine was deeply involved in the theater community as a Tony voter and advisory board member at the American Theater Wing. And for any of you who are on the receiving end, it was a delight to hear what FP's unfiltered thoughts were about the current theatrical season. I'm sure Hillary would undoubtedly have gotten the most juicy reviews. I will always remember when I came back to 853 raving about this new musical that I loved, and she told me it wasn't worth the walk. And for context, we do live 10 blocks away. My last memory of FP was eating al fresco with her and Lori, talking about the upcoming theater slate. She had thoughts. But we also discussed her favorite topic, her family, what everyone was doing, how proud she was. Her family was her life. Today's memorial is all about them. So let's hear more of their stories. And we'll start where she would want us to start, with her daughters. So please welcome Susan Pascal Johansson.
I see many faces, some familiar, some not, but I know we are all friends. And each one of us had a relationship with Francine, FP, and to me, Mommy. After all, this is what I called her. She was unique, talented, and caring, and beautiful. Truthfully, I could go on, but I have to get through my eulogy. We were best friends and spoke every day. You probably wonder, what did we talk about? Everything and anything, from business to the littles. If you're wondering, the littles refer to my children and her grandchildren. And then there are her great-grandchildren, the littles' littles. Mommy started this whole little thing, and it just stuck. I now give you permission to use this term when referring to your littles and theirs. Just remember who started this. Mommy was courageous. In the 50s, when many women were homemakers and stay-at-home moms, mine wasn't. She ventured out, a single mother with 3 small children in tow, into a world that didn't exactly welcome women. Got her degree at NYU and followed her trajectory to become a writer. Of course, the evolution was slow, but then one success after another after another. She was proud of her achievements, yet remained humble throughout her life. Some bits about Mommy. My husband Anders, whom Mommy respected and loved, was a welcomed third wheel at our weekly dinners. Choosing the restaurant was the hard part, either QB or Le Grand Boucherie. When we were sick of these places, we tried something new, only to return to the old. At dinner, after cocktails were served, Mommy was ready to share her solution to the world's most pressing issue. She had the cure. I loved our dinners. How I wish I could hear just one more cure. We can all agree that Mommy touched the lives of many with her masterful writing. What a terrific storyteller she was. The ability to lure you in her lair, hold you hostage because her books were that good. I will forever be proud of her. She particularly enjoyed readers who struggled and overcame. As someone with dyslexia, I understood this and appreciated her goal. Mommy left a legacy, which lives on today and for many tomorrows. I am heartbroken and miss her terribly. I recall when I lived in China, she said these very same words to me. The difference is, I came back and she isn't. Despite all she gives others, she gave me the best gift of all. Her love and sweet memories, excuse me. I would like to thank my sister Lori for making today so special. And Rachel, thank you. Share with me a moment of silence to remember your fondest memory with Francine. Thank you. Pablo.
Thank you so much, Susan. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm not coming up.
Okay. I was going to say my favorite memory that I thought about was the second to last memory I had with FP eating peaky toe crab with her and Molly. She loved that crab. And now please welcome Lori's daughter, Lori Wink Pascal, or LB, as she referred to her. Friend's daughter, sorry. Did I say Lori's daughter?
Thank you all for coming today. I'm not my mother's daughter when it comes to public speaking, but this is my last assignment from her, so since it's not my specialty, but making 150 shrimp toast would be, which my mother adored, this is going to be short. I'll share 3 things I loved about her. Her love of her children and grandchildren. My mother fiercely loved her daughters, me, Susan, and Jamie, and that carried on to our babies. My relationship with my mother really blossomed after the birth of my daughter, Molly. Oops. Hold on. Her first grandchild. It was the beginning of our new family, and my mother adored every addition, all 6 of her grandchildren. She called her grandkids Sugar, Cookie, and everything sweet. Nothing was more important to her than family. One of her favorite places to celebrate with family was at her villa in Cannes, where she spent half the year. In the summers, she would feature her grandchildren as the entertainment at her dinner parties, even though I vividly remember her screaming to turn that music down as they rehearsed on the terrace. The girls would put together a choreographed dance, usually hip-hop, and Thomas and John would do tricks with Sophie the dog. Artistically, it was a work in progress, but it was full of love. Her love of food was our shared language. It was how we connected, learned, and laughed. I can still picture her in the kitchen, always eager to lend a hand, despite my insistence that I didn't need it. She loved to offer her opinion, and oh, how stubborn she could be. I suppose that's where I inherited my own stubborn streak. We would talk endlessly about food, menu planning, recipes, and cooking techniques. She was my biggest fan, taking joy in everything I created. The meals I made were not just sustenance, they were my way of showing her love. Lastly, her passion. As you know, my mother was very successful, but you would never know her level of success from being with her. She was very modest. She was still working the day I took her to the doctor and she was admitted to the hospital, 92 years old. Her mind was always turning, creating, sharing stories was her life's passion, and she pursued it in every day and in every way. I thought of something else this morning, among a million other things, but when I moved back to New York 10 years ago and only looked to live on 55th Street, so I would be down the street from her, I'm so glad I did, especially for the years during the pandemic. I moved to my current apartment in the same building during that time, and we began a new tradition. When the weather was nice, she would mask up and come around the corner and sit at the fountain. Same time every day. Just when the sun was coming around the building, she claimed she needed her vitamin D. I'd look out my window from the 13th floor, always a good luck number in my family because she was born on the 13th, and see the top of her head of beautiful hair. I'd grab Lucy and head down to sit on the bench with her and just chat. We always had a lot to talk about, what was up in our lives, work, grandkids, great ones, and always something about food, of course. I always had a lot of pictures to share, and we also FaceTimed with the kids. Now when I look out the window, I remember all she meant to me, how much she loved us all, and how much I miss her so every day. There's so much more I could say about my mother. I knew her my whole life, and because of that, I know she would want us to keep moving towards cocktails and hors d'oeuvres.
Thank you so much, Lori. We're now going to hear from FP's best friend, Anita Anastasi, who no longer needs his hand held. Yes.
Hello, everyone. And of all of you that don't know me, my name is Anita Elliott Anastasi. And I've been a friend of Fran's for 60 years. I called her Franny, but I was the only one allowed to do that. My daughter, Ivy Caller, wrote a piece honoring Francine. Memories from the 60 years that Susan and her were friends. New York will never be the same. A matriarch holding her family above all else. An artist with a house filled with paintings and her daughter Jamie's spiral creations. A writer for children and adults. A lover of children. Her children. Her children's children. Her great-grandchildren. And my mother. New York will never be the same. Her wonderful face, her shining smile, her beautiful hair. That shakes in delight when making a point, when saying no or what in utter disbelief. New York will never be the same. Her unique touch on her every book, every play, her brothers and hers. Every friendship, every piece of art she crafted, including her daughters. How do I describe the knowledge she shared? They were all writers and artists in their own right. Fran stood behind their choices and work every step of the way. They traveled together, they went to the theater together, they shared birthdays and weddings and celebrations of all kinds. All gifts that she shared with her daughters and their families. No, New York will never be the same. A laugh that filled the room, a martini to share. And don't forget her famous Christmas party every year. The best hors d'oeuvres spread across the dining room table, always with Laurie's fabulous shrimp toast, while desserts made by her granddaughter are covered in flowers and love. New York will never, never, ever be the same. The Tonys, the dinners, the sunning in Central Park, bacon crispy, eggs soft. New York will never, ever, ever be the same. Fran was a truth teller, unadulterated truth, intuitive truth, both kind and to the point, and always on the mark. No, 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 New York will never be the same. Her keen awareness of right and wrong, her strength during the hardest, deepest, most unimaginable pains, her loyalty to all that touched her heart, and there are so many, so much family, so much deep, long-lasting friendships, so much time spent with my mom, holding her like a sister, laughing together, sharing secrets, sharing meals, sharing prosecco and champagne, sharing 60 years of friendship. And that's a lot. They even look alike. Fran will always be a part of the city, a big part, a major player, an icon, really. And New York will never, ever, ever be the same. Speaking for myself, I miss you, Fran. I love you so very much, and I miss you every day. We spend so much time together, sunning, like you guys said, and dinners. Our bond will never be broken, and my life will never be the same until we meet again, my friend, my sister. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
New York will never be the same. It's very true. It's very true.
Thank you.
And next we're going to welcome up Francine's niece, Judy Adler, her brother Bert's daughter.
Hi, I'm Judy. I'm Francine's niece. We had a very special relationship. After I graduated college, Anne Fran invited me to move into 853 7th Avenue. I learned so much about my family while sharing an apartment with my favorite cousins and my glamorous Anne Fran. Anne Fran was my father's younger sister. She was a Reuben, the youngest of 3 siblings. They were all brilliant, talented, and eccentric. Anne Fran was as beautiful as she was brilliant. She had natural blonde hair, long bangs, and flawless skin. She had a keen sense of humor. She was funny and loved to laugh. She was authentic. There was one word Anne Fran used to describe all that was wonderful. She would say it was marvelous, or they were marvelous, or the food was marvelous, or the show was marvelous. She, though, was the most marvelous of all. Marvelous and dearly missed. Anne Fran, rest in peace. I love you.
Now we'll hear from the executive editor at Penguin Random House, Whitney Leopard.
I'm incredibly honored to, Francine would already laugh at me. I'm incredibly honored today to pay tribute to a woman who has influenced so many. I've spent a long time thinking about the best way to call out Francine's remarkable life, how full of love she was for her family and her amazing career as an author. It seems only right as her editor that we celebrate the truly amazing career in publishing she had, because I will forever be grateful to have been a part. She has created hundreds of stories and brought millions of readers into bookstores, but as much as I would love to read her entire bibliography, I want to call out a few of my favorites. Only someone special can make their YA debut with Hanging Out with Cece, which ended up becoming an afternoon TV special. It wasn't her first book, but it is a book that brought so many readers into Francine's orbit. And while she was very proud of every story she wrote, it was her fearless storytelling that made many readers notice her and the amazing characters that she brought to life. So fearless, in fact, she eventually had a series called Fearless, which is a personal favorite of many people I work with. Francine was truly an inspiration and ended up shaping the stories that so many of us read and enjoyed and still have on our shelves. In thinking about the best way I can pay tribute to Francine, I realized I should share the one thing that brought us together in the first place, and that is twins. For those who don't know, I am a twin. I'm only 5 minutes older, but if you're a twin, you'll understand why those minutes are very important. It was because of my twinness that I was able to meet Francine as a child, not in person, but through her writing. When my mom saw a book with two blue-eyed girls smiling brightly on the cover and decided to bring Sweet Valley into our home for me and my twin to enjoy. I was hooked instantly and immediately had a favorite, Jessica, and Francine gained a lifelong fan in an instant. How could I not fall in love with the world of Sweet Valley? Francine's understanding of childhood was unfailing, and the timelessness of being a girl surrounded by friends, enemies, and frenemies, and the joyful everyday antics of just being a kid. Francine pulled from her own experiences and the experiences of her children and proved that coming of age stories will always stand the test of time. And let's be honest, Francine knew how to make drama fun, and there is a lot of drama in Sweet Valley. Since its debut, Sweet Valley High revolutionized young adult publishing. That series was a juggernaut of Francine's work, infiltrating the untapped audience of teen readers. This continued best-selling series was a major force in pop culture, empowering girls and women, and inspiring so many writers, as we have seen over the past few weeks with tribute after tribute, with authors paying respect to Francine and her influence over their lives and the stories that they create. It would be years later, after reading my first Sweet Valley book, that I finally got to meet Francine in person, and she lived up to my every expectation. We both wanted to bring Sweet Valley to life through graphic novels, and I'm sure this will be no surprise to you guys. She was not shy in saying what was very important to her. She knew her characters, she knew her audience, and wanted to make sure that she honored every reader that loved Jessica and Elizabeth as much as she had. But even more than that, she didn't hesitate into trying something new. If she didn't like something, she would email me, usually with an email that had no subject line, that would then be forwarded with another email that had no subject line. And if she liked something, it would be a phone call. I will be honest, her phone calls were my favorite. Francine was a woman of talent and strength. She was the type of person where if you visited her home to drop something off, you would find yourself sitting in her living room holding a cup of tea and discussing the article that she read that morning. She was so funny and had a sense of humor that made you want to talk with her for hours. Above all else, she loved her family and valued her friendships and adored her readers. I can't think of a single conversation we had that didn't end up being about one of her grandkids or some interaction she had with a fan over the years. I will be forever grateful for the time that I got to be both her editor and her fan. Francine's life was truly a testament to the power of love, friendship, and of course, twins. As we remember her today, I want to leave you with a piece of advice that she gave me when she popped by my office one day, and that is, you are never too old to enjoy drama. And if you feel like life is getting a little boring, then just create some drama of your own. I think we can all agree that Francine's life was never boring, and we should take her words with us in respect, and also as a challenge to keep things interesting in her honor.
Now we're going to welcome Francine's granddaughter, Alice Elizabeth Wank, who will be reading something from Francine's friend Rodney Bacall.
I'm Alice Wank, Grandmommy's granddaughter. For those who don't know, my grandmother's brother, Michael Stewart, owned a villa in the south of France where he split time between there and New York. He would place ads to hire caretakers to live on his property at various times while he traveled back and forth. One such hire was a young man named Rodney Bacall, who's here today. The year was 1981. The following are his words recalling a seminal moment in his life. Shortly after I moved to France to be a guardian for Mike Stewart's villa, his sister Francine came to visit. Mike told me she had just recently lost her husband, John, whom she deeply loved. He asked me not to mention it around her. She was coming to heal. At the end of the summer, when Mike left to go back to New York, Francine stayed for several months. I felt she was a little nervous, trying to heal while being stuck with a strange guy she didn't know. So I kept a distance. I was aware that I was there as a servant, and I was comfortable in that role. We would exchange a few polite words, good morning and such, but she stayed to herself and I kept my head down as I swept the terrace. Then one night she went into town for dinner alone. In those days, before Mike built the drive to the house, you had to park on the narrow road below the villa and then walk up hundreds of steep, winding stairs to the terrace gardens. Francine was just radiantly beautiful, and I can see her now as I did that evening when she came home from dinner. It was still light, the sun was drifting off, but the sky was that south of France blue, gold, pink cotton candy you could almost taste. She was always wearing white, flowing dresses and beautiful shoes. She was so elegant. I vividly remember standing on the veranda and watching her walk, slowly up the stairs, stopping occasionally to look at the exotic flowers. It is a great gift to observe someone so beautiful, candidly, when they are completely unaware. I think this image has always stayed with me because of how her great beauty was eclipsed by the deep sorrow she was carrying at that time. No one had ever carried their feelings as blatantly as Francine. They preceded her into any room. This moment has stayed with me because Francine's strength was prominent, and so her vulnerability was remarkable to witness. When she reached the top of the stairs, we said stiff hellos. How was your dinner? Then an awkward silence. We said goodnight. She headed for the villa, and I to my little shepherd's cottage. But I had been so affected by watching her climb those stairs in such grief, on impulse I turned and said, would you like to have a drink? There are so many brief, impulsive moments that have turned my life. This was one of the most important. We opened a bottle of champagne and sat on the veranda and drank as the sun sank into the Mediterranean, and then until the bottle was empty. We became dear friends. When she would return home from a restaurant or the casino, champagne on the veranda became a ritual. I made her spaghetti with a fried egg on top, and she made me a writer. In the life that followed, either directly or indirectly, Francine was responsible for every significant moment. She taught me the business of writing. She gave me a sense of worth for my work by believing in me. She gave me my first job as a writer. She introduced me to my agent, Richard Arlook, and my writing partner, Richard Wank. When life surprised Joan and I with our daughter, Olivia, it was Francine's daughter, Lori, who made sure our house was ready when we came home with our baby. We all referred to ourselves as the family, which is what we were in every real sense. Francine and I eventually lost touch, as people do through life and geography, but never affection. She loved as she did everything, fiercely and forever. The last time we spoke about a year ago, she was downsizing from her beautiful apartment on 7th, but she didn't. I don't remember what we talked about, but I remember walking away from the conversation with the same feeling I had after we said that final reluctant goodnight on the veranda so long ago. That life had given me a very special, remarkable gift in just knowing her. Francine was very proud of her Sweet Valley legacy. She was well aware that the style of the books had passed with time, but in their wake, she had birthed a literal army of young women to whom she had given a passion for reading, the greatest gift. I once asked her if she ever envisioned that, a sea of millions of young girls, each holding a copy of one of her books. She shook her head and laughed and said, if I did, I would never write another word.
Alice. And if you'll notice, Alice's middle name is Elizabeth, after the twins. FP said that she was an Elizabeth with Jessica tendencies. And now we'll welcome Susan's little, Nicole Johansson Ciaba.
I would like to start off by saying that Francine Pascal was much more than her work. She was grandmommy to me. She was a supportive. She was a supportive and loving mother, a proud and caring grandmother, and a sweet and doting great-grandmother. She knew how to enjoy life more than most. Marvelous was her word of choice to describe anything she enjoyed. She had exquisite taste and an elegance about her that I've never seen in anyone else. She was a class act. That never changed, even as she got older, and neither did her beauty. She was always beautiful. Grandmommy spent half of her time in the south of France at her villa, where she would throw legendary dinner parties, put together the most beautiful lunches, always prioritizing presentation, even when it was just us at the table, and lounging by the pool with the most breathtaking view. My family spent every single summer there, and my most cherished memories come from the days we spent together in that house. Grandmommy was everything. She acted as a second mother to me, and she was empowering. My whole life, she made me feel like there was nothing I couldn't do, and I believed it. Her family meant the world to her, and she meant the world to her family. She was incredibly charming, effortlessly funny. Her sharp mind and quick wit remained up until her very last days. She was strong and soft at the same time, and she had the warmest smile. She was kind-hearted, she cared about people, and she adored my daughter Olivia, who will grow up knowing and loving her through my eyes. Thank you.
Cool. And now Molly Jessica Wing, FP's oldest granddaughter, first.
I'd like to start off by thanking my grandmother for teaching me the right amount of Valium to take. It's either this or a shot of vodka. This has fewer calories. My grandmother's influence bleeds into my life in so many ways that it feels impossible to convey the actual impact she has on me every day. I'm here today to thank her for all that she taught me, all that she gave me, all that she inspired me to achieve. To so many people, she was so many things. To me, she was grandmommy, a name she came up with so that no one would ever confuse her for just a regular grandmother. She was anything but. She didn't get on the floor with us and play Legos. She taught us how to make hors d'oeuvres as soon as we developed motor skills. She didn't send us gift baskets on Easter or Valentine's Day. She sent us to French schools where we became bilingual. She signed us up for sailing camp, tennis lessons, and sent us to a sleepaway camp in the middle of France where we spent our days crawling inside caves, rock climbing off cliffs, and kayaking down rocky rivers. She taught me how to properly set a table, speak to people 3 times my age, and the proper use of a semicolon. And what she didn't teach me directly, I learned from watching her. The way she hosted a dinner, the way she engaged in conversation, her self-imposed rigid work routine, the way she always knew when to leave a party, the impact of a perfectly timed curse word. Life has given me a remarkable gift in just knowing her, in just getting to be with her. When my quarter-life crisis led me to New York 13 years ago, I moved in with my grandmother. She said she hoped some of my bravery would rub off on her. I went to pastry school 3 nights a week and worked 60 hours a week at a restaurant. During that time, we communicated almost exclusively via Post-its. In fact, I'm fairly certain she single-handedly kept Post-its in business. On the nights I came home late, she would get out of bed and come into the kitchen to taste the things I brought home, all the while reminding me that she did not have a sweet tooth. On rare occasions, I would sneak a quart of freshly spun vanilla ice cream home from the restaurant, and I swear watching her eat it was the happiest I've ever seen her. We spent many nights out in the city, just the two of us, trying new restaurants, one of her favorite things, then critiquing them, also one of her favorite things. We saw so much theater together, a place where we both felt so at home. She took great pride in finding the shortest route to any theater, even if just by a few steps. For almost 2 years, we were roommates. It was the opportunity of a lifetime to watch this extraordinary woman go through life as she got older, lost friends, watched the world get darker and scarier, yet she was unshaken. When he who shall not be named won the election, she wrote me an email that said, "I hear there's a protest march on Sunday. I'm ready to go." And that Sunday, along with her friends and my mom, we marched, all holding signs as high as we could. She was stubborn and outspoken, and if you've ever been on the receiving end of one of her emails, you know that she could be harsh. But it all came from this place of profound and unrelenting love. She loved me so much, and I could always feel it, even in those emails. I'm going to miss you forever. I will spend the rest of my life missing you. In big ways and small ways and medium ways and all ways, I'm going to miss you. There aren't many things that last forever, but missing you will never end. And it's a beautiful thing because I know I'll never forget to miss you. Sometimes I'll miss you and I'll know what I'm doing. And sometimes it will just be an emptiness or an ache that creeps in and takes me a moment to figure out where it's coming from. And then I'll remember, and I'll miss you then too. I'm going to miss you forever, and I find so much peace and so much pain in that at all at once. Grief is the price we pay for love, and the amount of love I have for you will leave me grieving forever, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you.
Our last speaker of the evening is Richard Wank, and as the program says, it's complicated.
I'm Richard, I'm complicated. I should explain, I was an early fan. I was the boyfriend to her daughter. I was the eventual son-in-law, a mentee, the father of her first grandchild, an occasional writing partner, an ex-son-in-law, and finally her West Coast Airbnb host. And that spanned 46 years. Of course, we don't measure connection in time. We measure connection in transformation. The heart doesn't wear a watch. It doesn't care how long. What the heart cares about is resonance. And some people resonate, and Fran resonated. I first met her when I was 22. I was a kid from New Jersey working in the city as a PA on an after-school special. And I was invited by the director to a cocktail party, my first. And because he was buying a book that someone had written. It was someone's swanky apartment. It was my first New York apartment. I wandered the rooms out of place, no one talking to me or I to them. And that has never changed. Among the stuffy, older, well-dressed guests, I spied two younger and incredibly hot blondes, unaccompanied, so sophisticated and radiant. Now, I had heard about cougars, and one seemed to be the guest of honor, so I studied them and watched them move effortlessly through the crowd. They saw me watching them and they approached. like antelope, like a lion to an antelope. Cocktail glasses perfectly balanced, blonde tresses like Clairol commercial. I was about to be eaten or interrogated or thrown out, but at least I was going to be able to recount I met a cougar. A hand was extended. I'm Fran, and the other purred. I'm Anita. It turns out, not cougars. This Fran person had written a book. Anita, her best friend, a coca dancer, both were married, and both with offspring around my age. They asked about me, stammering, I stammered something, both acted interested and curious, which was very nice, and they made me feel included. The trajectory of my life altered when the Fran lady remarked, "You should come over and meet my daughters," and then recited the following: 853 7th Avenue, apartment 5C. Those numbers, followed by the third letter of an alphabet, would become the center of a remarkable chapter in my life and a window into who Fran was. It was in 5C I met Lori and fell in love. It was where Fran introduced me to her agent, Amy Burkauer, and finagled me my first writing job. It was apartment 5C that I was introduced to her brother, Michael Stewart, who Lori convinced him to hire me as his gopher. And it was 5C where Sweet Valley was birthed, and where Fran became Francine, where she offered me advice on how to be a writer in her tiny office, and where I lived while making my first movie, using the building, apartments, and even fluffy donuts as sets. It was where celebrations were had, Christmases and those Jewish things that I never knew the names of were held, baby showers and birthdays and holidays, where Fran held court in her chair, opinionated, stubborn, prickly, empathic, loving, and generous. It's where everything took place. And it's where I understood that some people make things, and some people make lives, and some people make all of it in space. 853 7th Avenue, apartment 5C was that space. It was where I met John Pascal, where I witnessed an unwavering love story, and something I had never seen before. It was also a place where I first witnessed a secret and deeply courageous side of Fran. You see, Fran believed she wasn't brave, and I found that odd that someone so self-aware could miss this part of herself. She lost John there, the true love of her life, and 5C was suddenly somber. She left for France, and 5C went silent. Months later, Fran returned, oddly with resilience. And life in 5C resumed, Fran at the head of the table now. On or in a chair, and Sweet Valley grew into a monster. Hillary was there, moving around, and the resounding success echoed through the hallways, until life was interrupted again, and Fran lost her brother Mike, her rock, her greatest supporter, and 5C became quiet again. But Fran willed life to resume. Grandbabies, marriages, divorces, parties, more book success. It all came back. I was gone, but the richness and mirth never missed a beat. She survived it all with her bravery. And then Jamie. A loss so incomprehensible and devastating, it could not be survivable. I was present when both mother and daughter said goodbyes to their child. My heart shattered for both and broke for Fran. What 5C always held surely could not take this blow. How could it? How could the matriarch who lorded over this palace ever love anything again? But the remarkable among us are not those who have been spared life's unfairness, but rather those who have faced it and come out the other side. And so with such bravery and courage and ferocity of strength, so quiet and so subtle that we did not see it, Fran did come out the other side. And magically 5C resumed this place of warmth and love again. There were grandkids and great-grandkids who indoctrinated, and Fran was the empress. And you can only do this if you choose to love and live fully, no matter what it throws at you. Fran would live fully. She did not half love you. She did not collect half friends. She did not accept half a solution, entertain half hopes. Half an idea would bear no results, and halfway gets you nowhere. Fran was never the darkness she endured. She was the light that refused to surrender. A light she shone upon all of us. And that is what I'll remember. Not what she did or accomplished, but how she made me feel and how it made us feel in spite of all this light and at all this darkness. And how she took an interest and how she was a champion for all who crossed her path. My last encounter with Fran was a year and a half ago when she stayed with me while visiting Alice, Liam, and Levi. Yes, the cursed son-in-law's home. Yet there she was, decades later, the same Fran, resonating on my couch, the two of us talking work, exchanging ideas, helping one another. I remember listening to her pepper me with the ideas for a latest script I was writing and thinking how I might not be sitting here were it not for her and her belief in me. We parted that week, Fran remarking what a wonderful time she had and hoped to do it again. The plans were made for a return visit, but it was not to be. A short time later, she was gone. And it was under these circumstances that I returned to 5C at 20 some odd years later. And here's the thing. It was the same. It was still a palace, exactly how I remembered. There were ghosts there now, John and Mike, Jamie, and now Fran. But their presence felt warm, as if saying goodbye to it, with everybody else swirling around, a gathering of old and new faces in her memory by the courageous Gloria and the gracious Susan. The gathering seemed a testament to their mother. Everything perfect, the food, the drink, and the people. I watched it from the corner of the room, decades removed from being part of the family, wistful of the love, connection, and history of lives lived and being passed on. The space in 5C will be emptied, new people will take over. They'll have no idea what preceded them, that it wasn't just an apartment. For the memories cultivated there by a woman who made it a palace could never be duplicated, because memories are the only important things we leave behind. Molly, Alice, Thomas, Mia, Nicole, John, Taryn, Brianna, Jordan, they're yours now. Keep them alive, share them freely, because that's how you love people forever. And Fran, in my book, I have the corner folded down on your page, because it was the most memorable and special and one of the most favorite chapters of my life. Thank you.
If they asked me, I could write a book about the way you walk and whisper and look. I could write a preface on how we met, so the world would never forget. And the simple secret of the plot is just to tell them that I love you aloud. And the world discovers as my book ends how to make two lovers of friends. the Platte is just to tell them that I love you a lot. And the world discovers